Racist store owner rejects black man, only to discover he's the real boss. A rich black man disguises himself as a normal shopper at one of his luxury boutiques, since the owner of the location does not. The owner is startled when he sees the man and remarks racistly about the black man the next day. Contacted the corporate offices and finds the black guy Andrew Bennett standing at 5th Avenue once more. The fall breeze delivered a sense of frost ruffling his casual hem among the busy bustle of New York City. Black jacket, Andrew watched the customers dash by the glass window, pulling his baseball cap down to hide his face. He had a huge building with elegant lines that were embossed. Luxury stores. Shoppers strolled in and out, bags swinging, the elegant decor displayed in gold lettering over the door. Andrew walked forward, pulling open the massive glass door, breathing deeply through its big windows and hearing a gentle chime. Declared his arrival within the store to be a world of polished marble flooring, soft velvet chairs, and well-placed high-end fashion jewelry displays featuring pricey fragrance smells draped in. The air mixing with the mellow jazz music playing in the background, Andrew had created this room to be friendly. A place where luxury met comfort, yet today he felt like an outcast dressed in dark trousers, sneakers, and a basic black jacket. He looked nothing like the usual audience of a store. That was the purpose. He wanted to see how consumers were treated without considering his position or rank. This had been done elsewhere, but today was different. Today he was back in his hometown, monitoring one of the stores he most felt proud of. Andrew strolled over. Looking at a display case full of designer timepieces, he appreciated the workmanship on every piece he came across. Well, he helped choose the items, but today he was merely another client from the periphery of Andrew's eye caught William Coleman, the franchise owner of the store, standing close to the counter. William was in his middle years. He was discussing with a woman, thinning gray hair and a sharp suit that seemed a touch too snug around the midsection. Andrew stepped closer to the watch display. A designer spoke softly and politely, smiling on his face. William's eyes strayed to him, the smile lost to a small frown Andrew tried not to realize he picked up. Turning over a sleek silver item with a leather strap from the display, he held it in appreciation in his hands. "Wait, pardon me," JN remarked, keeping his voice light. "Could you tell me more about this watch?" William approached his steps. Slow and methodical, he looked Andrew up and down, absorbing the casual attire the baseball cap wore. His expression was guarded, almost contemptuous. "One of our limited edition versions," William mentioned. His voice had a clipped, perfunctory tone. "Very exclusive." Kept his smile. Why is William's eyes narrowed? Andrew kept his smile. "Maybe you might be interested in something more reasonably priced. This is a quite high-end object." Though Andrew felt a flutter of annoyance, knowing William did not know him, his remark's underlying assumption was obvious. Andrew chose to keep pushing a little bit. "I enjoy high-end items," Andrew answered coolly. "What makes this one unique?" William moaned, as if he was compelled to carry out a laborious chore designed by one of the best watchmakers in Switzerland. "The workmanship is unmatched and the materials are first quality. It's a collector's item, actually limited to a very small number of pieces globally." JN nodded, carefully still. William hesitated for a time, his eyes glancing over Andrew's face as he held the watch. "Sounds amazing. How much does it cost?" Searching for a clue as to whether he could afford it, he said at last with a feint of a tinge of hesitancy, "But as I mentioned, we have alternative choices that might fit your budget." Andrew's smile stayed, but inside he experienced a familiar annoyance and carefully returned the watch to the exhibition case, glancing at William. "And if I wanted to purchase this one?" William's eyes flared with irritation. "Well, I would need to see evidence of payment first. We don't just let everyone go away with our finest works." Andrew's expression was the same, but his patience was running low. William's tone grew defensive. "Because I saw that store policy questions consumer ability to pay before making a sale. It's not about challenging it. It's about preserving our brand's integrity and upholding our reputation, from which we cannot simply let." Andrew kept William's stare for a minute longer, then nodded slightly. "Anyone handling our goods?" "Comprehend," he whispered gently. Looking away from the exhibit case, Andrew started to feel. He could feel the door calling. William's eyes on his behind could almost hear the man's ideas as he discreetly assessed. Andrew pushed open the door and retreated into the cool city air, his head already whirling over what had just happened. He had come to see the actuality of his stores without his regular presence. Now he had only what he had seen. Disappointingly angry seething under his composed facade as he stood on the pavement merging back into the stream of passers-by, Andrew knew this visit would not finish here. He had seen enough to know that action was needed. Andrew Bennett stood outside the store, gathering his ideas. He had come here to watch, but what he had seen? His blood simmered with rage. He inhaled deeply and turned back toward the glass door to enter. Again resolved to find whether this was a one-off occurrence or a trend, the quiet chime rung once again as he entered. This time, he went right for the section where William Coleman had mentioned without bothering about browsing. William was still close to the counter, now studying his phone, when he noticed Andrew approaching, his eyes narrowing. The earlier condescension had not been a mistake. Andrew understood William's expression was the result of a combination of annoyance and superiority. Andrew inhaled once more, reminded himself of his goal, and then walked toward a show of designer jackets, brushing his fingers across the beautiful fabric. The coat was black, finely designed, ideal for fall. Andrew lifted it up in front of himself to have a better view. "Forgive me," JN remarked, his voice calm and pleasant. "Could you tell me more about this coat?" William searched from his phone, eyes flitting from the garment to Andrew's face. He paused for a second, then tucked his phone away and strolled over. "The phony smile, one of our quality goods," William mentioned, their tone exactly as clipped as before. "Italian wool, handcrafted from our most recent collection, really exclusive." Andrew nodded, looking at the coat. "It's good. How much is?" William's smile tightened. "Priced at $2,500 wash," he said, and enunciated every word as though teaching a young child. "These are meant for our high-end clients. We generally put this kind of stuff out for just anyone to handle." Andrew arched an eyebrow but maintained a bland tone. "I see, you keep some things out of reach of your typical consumers." William's face hardened, the courteous facade that our frequent clients are aware of what they can afford and what they can. "Surely, we serve a particular clientele here who value excellence and have the wherewithal to." Andrew put the coat back on its peg and took his time. He felt the irritation rising once more, but forced. "I value quality," he mentioned equally, "and believe I could be interested in this coat to keep cool." William moved closer, lowering his voice as though he were trying to mix annoyance with incredulity. "Look," William said, a tinge of disdain seeping into his voice. "I don't mean to keep their talk secret. Offended, but maybe you should check some of our more reasonably priced choices. There's no use wasting time on things that fall outside your range." Andrew's loss of patience was quick. He met William's eyes, his words stern yet. Andrew answered, controlled. "You do not know what my range is. Assuming you do based on how I look is not good business." William's gaze stiffened. He stared Andrew down and obviously assessed him once more. "We have an image to keep," William stated gently, as though talking to someone who didn't follow the guidelines. "We cannot just have everyone comes in and handles our most costly possessions. It's about maintaining the brand." Andrew carried William's eye, his rage now clear in his eyes. Protecting the brand, Andrew reflected upon, evaluating individuals based on look, that is not how. William crossed his arms, his posture tightening. "Our clients, you foster loyalty or respect for exclusivity. They want to see someone in here touching everything related to the sensation the surroundings provide. It's what sets us different." Andrew, his eyes never leave William's, "and you wonder how you would treat possible clients with such sluggish breathing." William shrugged, a smug smile across his face. "Disrespect is a part of that experience. I think I know my clients. My role is to uphold the store JN's integrity." He did not react right away and stared throughout the store, appreciating the well-placed goods, the other patrons starting to. Then he went back to William, noticing the strain between them. Andrew remarked at last, "Thank you for your time." "Cool, I believe." Andrew turned on his heel and left without waiting for a reply. "I have seen everything I could require." He headed for the door, and the chime chimed softly as he merged back into the cool city air. This time JN lingered on the pavement. He went fast down the street, his head racing. What he had gone through was intolerable. not only as a businessman, but also as someone who saw the need of treating others with respect. Reality of his store's activities, and now Andrew's jaw tightened as he considered William's patronizing tone, his contemptuous attitude. This was about the ideals Andrew had developed his business around, not only about a coat or a watch. Values that were obviously not being maintained in the shop started to change into determination. He understood what he needed to accomplish today. He had been treated as simply another consumer judged by his appearance, discounted without thought. Tomorrow, he would return not as Andrew Bennett, the client, but as Andrew Bennett, the owner. Things were about to change. JN spent the night mentally repeating the encounters, each word. From William sharpened his determination by grieving his dissatisfaction, had crystallized into a clear plan. He would return to the store and probe further to discover if William's behavior went beyond his personal experience, if he treated him. This is how he treated others. JN decided to dress once more in his casual jean sneakers and the same black jacket. Andrew returned into the luxury store. The bell over the door sounded, Andrewing his arrival. The less people were browsing. Andrew came straight to the jewelry aisle than yesterday. The place was quieter. This time his gaze rested on a glass case filled with a rainbow of diamond bracelets and necklaces. Each piece shone beneath the gentle illumination, their price tags subtly buried. As Andrew examined a particularly complex bracelet, he caught William standing out of the corner of his eye, talking to a young woman with a worried look on her face in the rear of the store. Sarah Moore, the assistant manager. She was nodding as William spoke, hands tensely fumbling with a clipboard. Andrew strained. Snippets of their talk make me not care whether William is a prospective client. His voice was low yet strong. Sarah looked over in Andrew's direction, a benchmark to keep an eye on, her face a mixture of concern and compassion. She caught Andrew's sight momentarily before turning away. Andrew pretended not to see, continuing to examine the jewelry. He knew now that William was guiding his staff to be cautious of him. The knowledge confirmed. Andrew chose to face William one more, but this time he would discover how far his prejudice goes. A young woman approached, her countenance calm, but a diamond necklace waving for a sales representative to help him guarded. Good morning, Andrew replied with a kind grin. Could you kindly tell me more about this jewelry? The sales associate paused, then turned back to Andrew, this after glancing over her shoulder at William, who was now attentively observing them. One of our most famous works, she added softly. It's made of the best diamonds and set in platinum, thus its price. Andrew nodded gratefully. At $15,000. It's magnificent, he remarked. And might I get a closer look? Look. Before the associate could reply, William moved over, his expression stern. Andrew added, Is there a problem here? William asked, guiding his question to the associate rather than Andrew. No problem. Gently stepping closer, I was simply curious about this jewelry. I wanted to look at further. William's eyes sparkled with annoyance. I don't think that's required, he remarked, his voice tinged with contempt. As I indicated before, we have other pieces. Andrew maintained his eyes steady, refusing to be discounted. They might be more suited for you. Intrigued in this one, William crossed his arms and his patience. Clearly show me what I would want. Our strategy is to save items like these for clients who are committed to making purchases. I cannot have just anyone testing out our most valuable pieces. Andrew's cool head fell off, his frustration developing. And what do you suppose? I'm not serious. William glanced Andrew down and down, his sneer clearly experienced. William remarked coldly, I know who can afford what. My responsibility is to preserve the integrity of this store. And Andrew felt his rage rising, but he maintained a calm voice. And you uphold that brand reputation by evaluating people based on appearance, by declining assistance to someone based on your belief they lack. William's face didn't change. It's not personal. It's business. Our clients demand a certain degree of exclusivity. Andrew moved closer, dropping his voice. I cannot afford to waste time on individuals, not serious purchasers. And how many major purchasers you turned away based on presumptions about the number of individuals you have offended. William's jaw tightened. You determined they didn't suit your concept of a consumer, so I operate this store the way I see things fit, he remarked sharply and directly. I don't have to justify myself to you. Andrew held. You might not have to explain yourself to me, Andrew. William's angry stare seething beneath his composed front. But you will have to answer to someone this kind of treatment is wrong. William's eyes not only detrimental for business. Flashed with doubt for a minute before his visage hardened once more. If you find our methods unsatisfactory, you are welcome to leave. Andrew stated dismissively. There are many more stores that might fit your preferences. Inhaled deeply, stepped back, and looked at Sarah, observing the transaction with a concerned look. Thank you. Andrew responded to William. Your voice is cold. I'll be sure to let the appropriate people know how you run your store. With that, Andrew turned on his heel and left the store. The chime of the door seemed to echo more than before as he retreated onto the busy street. Andrew understood what he had to do next. He had seen enough to grasp William's behavior was not a one-time occurrence. Rather, it was a way of thinking that Andrew needed to change as he was walking. A way his will confirmed. He had hoped for a different result, but now he was sure change was required, and it was. Starting at the top, JN stayed late getting ready for what had to be done the following morning. He failed to return. He went straight to the sleek glass building of his company in Midtown instead of the luxury store. Manhattan within the environment was one of quiet efficiency, phones ringing softly, employees moving deliberately. Andrew entered the executive meeting room, a vast area with a long polished table and floor to cover through the hallways. Andrew took a seat at the head of the table. His attitude was calm but firm. Ceiling windows above the city he was seated in set up William Coleman to see him here under the cover of talking about future plans and shop performance. Andrew knew would guarantee William showed up. Andrew's assistant Amanda stood by the door ready for William to arrive shortly. William arrived in the room. His normal confidence enveloped him like a cocoon. He wore a fine suit and his face. Clearly he thought he was being called in for another routine, a look of wonder mingled with a slight irritation. Visit, maybe even to get compliments for his efforts at the store. William stumbled somewhat onto Andrew. His eyes opened in surprise as he sat at the head of the table. Then he looked at Amanda, then back at Andrew. He was definitely struggling to place Andrew. Bewilderment flashed across his face. JN stayed quiet for a bit, allowing William to. William J. stated, waving to a chair. Absorb the situation. Then he spoke, his voice calm and commanding. William paused across the table, then pulled out a chair and settled down. Good morning, Mr. Bennett. William remarked warily. I wasn't expecting to see you here. Everything is good. Jane leaned slightly. His look steady. William. All is not perfect. I have come to talk about some major issues regarding your behavior at. William's eyes danced with uncertainty, then with a try at his normal confidence. About what? Sales are up and the brand image is solid. If there is a concern I would want to address, I have been running the store the way I always have. Be glad to discuss it. Andrew's expression stayed the same. Sales figures aren't. William, the problem here is how you treat individuals. I visited your business yesterday. You didn't identify me. Since I arrived as a frequent client dressed casually, and then rapidly followed by a revelation on William's face. His mouth opened then closed as he attempted to think of a reply. Andrew continued before he could. Andrew stated, his voice was calm but firm. I witnessed personally how you assess me based on my appearance. You made presumptions. You were contemptuous and refused to offer the same degree of service you would for someone you judged deserving. Customer, this is about how you probably treat others, anyone who doesn't suit your criteria, not only about how you handled me. William gulped hard, his face, reading. Mr. Bennett, I didn't realize it was you. If only had a limited view of who deserves respect. Andrew cut him off. That's exactly the issue. You shouldn't have to know who someone is to treat them. This company represents inclusivity and respect based on basic human decency. We developed our brand on the concept of luxury, therefore. Is not only about uniqueness but also about making people feel valued. You have made my store the reverse of what it is. Supposed to be. William shuffled in his seat, obviously uncomfortable. I was only trying to uphold the brand's image to preserve it. Exclusive and high standards. Our clients demand a particular environment, a certain consumer. Andrew's speech hardened. Regardless of their appearance or style, consumers expect good products and courteous service. Deserve to be welcomed. Your action compromises all this stuff. Brand is meant to reflect. William's face was a mask of despair. Now, Mr. Bennett, please, I can change, I realize. Now I'll perform better. Whatever you require. Andrew shook his head gently. It's too late for that. Aiming won't help you change your mindset. Rather, it's a basic issue with how you view individuals, and I am ending your franchise agreement since I cannot let it to continue with effectiveness right now. You are no longer in charge of that store. William's eyes grew shocked. You cannot be serious. I have been with this company for years. I have helped establish the reputation of that store. You cannot simply cut me off like Andrews stepped up to observe. Never changing from Williams. Absolutely I can, and your actions mirror the whole business, and I won't let one person's prejudices ruin what we have created. Security will escort you out. Williams stood up as well, his visage a mirror of instructions on the termination process and what would follow. Mix of disbelief and wrath. I am the best manager this company has. You will repent it. This JN stayed quiet, his voice consistent. William's error was letting you pass. I won't regret making sure my stores are run by, so you remain in a position where you could compromise the values of the business. William, who knew what this brand really meant, looked at Andrew for a second, then turned sharply, and Andrew watched him depart, feeling a sense of closure as he rushed out of the room with his feet echoing down the corridor. Settle over him. It was not only about firing William, but also about safeguarding his company's integrity and completing. Andrew looked at Amanda, who had observed the whole exchange calmly, knowing every client felt appreciated. Verify Williams' escort out, and that the changeover procedure starts right now, JN said. Amanda nodded. Yes, Mr. Bennett, I'll take care of it. Andrew moved up to the window, gazing out over the city he had seen today. He had taken a required step today. More work would be required to guarantee that every store bearing his name maintained the ideals he thought important. For now, Andrew felt peaceful. The lesson was simple: respect and integrity would always come first. Andrew stood at his office's expansive windows, gazing over the busy streets of New York City below the conference venue. William had gone as predicted, but Andrew knew that the sense of finality had not brought delight. When William was required, but it was only one component of a more general problem. He moved away from the window, his phone buzzed, and found a message. Andrew strolled down the stairs. Sarah Moore, the assistant manager of the store, she had promised to meet him at the headquarters to discuss the future of the store. He walked Sarah's corridor to the conference room where she was waiting. She stood up fast, looking anxious. She wore a basic blouse and skirt and had brown hair put back into a tidy ponytail with eyes reflecting a combination of anxiety and hope. Andrew smiled reassuringly at her. Thank you for coming, Sarah. Jan, gesturing for her to seat. I know it's been a demanding couple of days. Sarah nodded, her hands clasping and unclasping in her lap. Yes, Mr. Bennett. I have heard about what happened with William. The staff, they are afraid about what is going to happen to the store. Andrew sat down across from her. I wanted to discuss this, Williams. Although the company's health depends on departure, I realize it leaves a lot of questions. I want to make sure, going forward, the store is in good hands. Sarah nodded with a serious expression. I appreciate Mr. Bennett. Always. Tried to do my best at the store, but William had his method of doing things. And it didn't always coincide with what I believed to be right. Andrew watched her closely and noticed how you behaved. I would want to offer you, Sarah, as she maintained professional even in a trying environment. As interim manager, you know the workforce of a store. I assume you know what this brand represents. Stands for. Sarah's eyes widening, shock and relief washing across her face momentarily. Manager, she repeated. Mr. Bennett, I'm not sure what to say. I never expected this. Andrew grinned. Say you'll take the out. I need someone I can rely on to help me ensure the business reflects the ideals we hold. To guide someone who wouldn't make the same mistakes William did. Sarah's hands shook slightly as she nodded. Yes, Mr. Bennett, I'll do it. I'll do whatever it takes to make the store what it should be. I've always thought in treating every client with respect regardless of. Andrew's demeanor softened. Just what I wanted to hear. You will have my complete support. We will work together to implement the required changes. I want you to feel equipped to handle all problems to guarantee every client feels appreciated and welcome. Sarah looked at, clearly relieved. Mr. Bennett, I have always cared for the store and the employees. I simply never felt as like I had the power to change. Andrew nodded. You do now. I will make sure you get the tools you need. Should we start with retraining for every employee, concentrating on customer service and Inclusiveness, whether they're shopping for a $10,000 watch, every person who visits that business should feel like they belong. As they talked, Sarah's confidence seemed to flourish. I could see the staff would react favorably. They also simply need to know that their efforts are appreciated and that Nim's surroundings are good. Andrew relaxed back in his chair, satisfied in a way he hadn't felt in a while. I will be following up routinely, but I rely on you to manage things on the ground we are on together, Sarah. The store's prosperity depends on this. Isn't N only about earnings? It's about creating a community of respect and inclusion. Sarah grinned the tension. Leaving her shoulders, Mr. Bennett, I will make sure the store reflects the best of what your company offers. I will not let you down. Stands for Andrew stepped up and offered his hand. I know you'll be grateful for this. I am looking forward. Seeing the good changes you will bring, Sarah shook her hand firmly and thanked Mr. for giving her fresh direction. Bennett, I am excited to be able to truly change things. As Sarah left the conference room, Andrew sensed. Though the events of the preceding few days had been difficult, they had also acted as a catalyst for required. He knew more stores to visit, more managers to meet, more work to be done, but today was a step in the right direction. Andrew went back to his office, looking out over the city once more, considering the people who had once more directed his path. Every day, he went through the doors of his establishments, carrying with them his own goals and dreams created. His brand, believing that everyone, today, deserves to be treated with decency regardless of their background. No. Acted to guarantee that belief was maintained. When the sun sank over the skyline, Andrew experienced a calm pride. He wasn't only a businessman, he was a leader with obligations to use his position to create a positive impact. With someone like Sarah in place, he knew his stores would continue to flourish not only as venues of luxury, but also as venues where everyone felt welcome. The day following William's dismissal, Andrew wasted no time in putting improvements into action. He set up a meeting with the retail employees at the store to go over the new direction and reassure them that even with the sudden change in management, his employment were safe and respected. He recognized that stability and clarity. Changing the store to match the principles of the brand would depend mostly on communication to help with respect and inclusiveness. The discussion took place in a smaller yet private conference room at the corporate headquarters. Similarly beautiful space than the one Andrew had confronted William, the crew filed in their faces, a combination of. Sarah Moore stood in the front with JN, a clipboard in hand, curious and worried, yet looking more assured than she had. The day before, Andrew got up to thank you all for attending. His voice started to be calm and soothing. I want to be open with you about what's occurring, William. The past several days have been difficult. Coleman is no longer with the organization. His leaving was required to match the operations of our store with the principles we represent as a brand. A murmur around the crowd. Andrew could see the questions in their eyes, the uncertainty about what this meant for them and their future at the store. He kept staring at as many of them. We value every one of you in the work you do, hence it is apparent that your positions are not in threat. We will be changing things, nevertheless, to make sure our store welcomes every client. It's not only about making sales, it's also about developing relationships and, regardless of their appearance or name. Sarah stood forward, her voice consistent, as every person who passes through our doors treated with dignity. Our team will be guided in these initiatives by a new temporary manager who will concentrate on customer service training, and I will be carefully collaborating with every one of you to ensure we all grasp what is anticipated. This is not about pointing fingers, it's about developing jointly and enhancing our interactions with our clients. Among one of the sales asks how long exactly this training entails, and associates, a young man called James, raised his hand. Andrew nodded at Sarah, who responded saying the training will cover everything from how to welcome clients to dealing sensitive circumstances. It will include seminars on cultural understanding and inclusion. The aim is to ensure everyone feels qualified to offer the greatest service. We will begin with a set of brief sessions over the next several weeks and would have continuous training throughout the year. James nodded, appearing to accept the explanation. Another, Amanda, an older woman, stepped up and asked what should happen if we observe behavior contradicting these ideals. We let you know straightforwardly, Sarah. Andrew Yes, you can let Sarah know about any issues and also come. My door is always open straight to me. We take these concerns seriously, and I wish everyone should feel safe and encouraged when they speak out. This helps us to create a society based on responsibility and respect, and that begins with all of us. The staff nodded, and Andrew felt a change in the room. The tension was releasing, replaced with a careful optimism. They were hearing about changes they were personally involved in that were absolutely vital. Andrew questioned, gazing about the room, a young woman called Claire, who seems to be gaining trust. Any additional questions? Working as a cashier raised her hand. What if consumers arrive with the same attitude William had? How can we deal? Challenging circumstances where clients are acting rudely or discriminating. Sarah said, that's a fantastic question, Claire. Should you ever feel conflicted, part of our training will provide de-escalation methods and conflict resolution approaches. Uncomfortable, or if a client is acting improperly, don't hesitate to call on a management. We want you to feel enabled to manage events professionally, but we are also here to assist. JN nodded in agreement. Remember, you are not alone in this. We are a team and will cooperate to ensure everyone feels valued, both staff-wise. For clients equally, the team appeared to unwind, even more reassured by the well-defined strategy and the assistance provided. JN felt relief for himself. He understood these adjustments would not fix every issue overnight, but they would start something. The business had to be a place where everyone felt appreciated and accepted, hence everyone had to be committed. Thank you, everybody, for your time, Andrew stated, wrapping up the meeting, and I am sure every one of you is capable and believe. Let's work together to make this store an example of what our brand stands for. The crew started to file, some pauses to ask Sarah small questions, others returning to their jobs with a fresh awareness of. Andrew watched them go with hope, knowing he had made the correct choice in advancing Sarah. She was already displaying leadership qualities William lacked. Her rapport with the personnel was evident as the room. Suddenly, Andrew turned to Sarah. You did well today. The crew appreciates you, and they are looking to you for direction. Keep that momentum running. Sarah smiled, looking both relieved and determined. Thank you, Mr. Bennett. I will not let you down. Andrew nodded. I know you'll be checking in often. We can really change things here. But if you need anything, I trust you to manage things. Kindly let Sarah know. And Andrew left the conference room. His attention had shifted to the next actions, other managers to meet at different stores. William's problem had been a wake-up call, a warning that even the greatest of intentions may be compromised by. As Andrew made his way through his headquarters hallways, he had renewed sense of prejudice and bad leadership. Though the meeting with William had been challenging, justice was more than merely punishing wrongdoing. It was about establishing an environment where such behavior wasn't accepted. JN was dedicated to constructing a business where honesty and respect, inclusiveness transcended just words on a. Their mission statement was based on ideas that directed every choice, every action, and every connection. Andrew was aware of would provide difficulties, but his dedication to his values and the backing of leaders such as Sarah gave him hope that they may have a genuine and long-lasting influence. The store was already displaying indicators of change. The mood felt lighter, the workers more involved and friendly. Sarah had chosen a wise temporary manager. She had effectively planned the training courses, and the team answered favorably, wanting to establish a more inclusive and courteous surroundings. JN had promised. JN had honored his promise. He decided to visit unannounced today to see how things were going. When he entered, James, the sales worker, met him instantly when the familiar chime above the door sounded. She had expressed worries during the staff meeting. Good morning, Mr. Bennett, James replied kindly. It's fantastic to see. Good morning, James, Andrew answered, shaking his hand. How are things? James nodded fervently. Really? Actually, the training courses have been beneficial. Sarah has been doing a fantastic job overall. The team feels more linked, and we all agree on how we should handle our clients. Andrew grinned, and just what I intended. I'm glad you all managed this change. As Andrew traveled farther into, keep up the great work. The shop, he observed friendly staff members helping without thinking twice, and an overall aura of positivity stood in sharp contrast to the environment William had found on his first visit when he was in When Jayan made his way to the rear of the business, where his vision was becoming realized, felt satisfaction. "Good to see you." Sarah was chatting with a client when she looked up Andrew and excused herself. "Mr. Bennett." Remarked her expression bright. "You too, Sarah," Andrew said. "I just wanted to pop by and see how things are going. It looks good. The crew has been excellent. Your FC work." Sarah's face glowed with pride. "Thanks, Mr. Bennett. They have truly embraced the reforms and given consumer comments. I believe we are on the correct path." Andrew nodded. "I agree, you have swiftly turned things around here, and I would most want to be happier with the advancement. I will keep helping you in any form." The sound of the halted talk came from the Andrew turned to find William Coleman standing at the door and heard a loud door chime. William's suit was less sharp than normal. His countenance was marked with concern as his eyes swept the store towards Andrew. And Sarah. Andrew's countenance tightened somewhat. He hadn't expected to find William here, particularly not following there. William made his last visit, walking slower than usual and with less confident posture. "Mr. Bennett." William started, his voice nearly begging. "I know I'm probably the last person you want to see, but I have to talk to you. Please give me a moment." Andrew's expression kept blank. He gazed at Sarah, startled eyes, but stayed still. Quiet, then back at William. "All right, William," Andrew stated coolly. "You have a moment." William drew a long breath, his shoulders drooping. "I came to apologize, Vaughn. I knew I was mistake. I had time to consider my actions, and now see that I made a horrible error. I condemn individuals unfairly, let my preconceptions interfere with doing my work, Mr. Bennett. Really, I am." Jan listened without interrupting. William's eyes were begging, his demeanor opaque, heavy with desperation. "I had been with the company. William kept me interested in the brand, about the store for years. Please offer me another opportunity. Let me demonstrate that I can operate the store the way you want it run. I'll do everything." Silence for a moment allowed William's words float in the air. Andrew considered the many times William had most certainly turned away clients based on their appearance, the way he had handled Jayan's abrupt death. Change of heart seems more driven by desperation than by true regret. "I appreciate your apologies, William," Andrew remarked at last. His voice was calm but forceful. "Yet, this is about a pattern of behavior and attitude, not only about one error that you have shown for years. What I observed in the store was not only a mistake, but also the result of a real deep-seated mentality incompatible with our principles." William's face collapsed with a mixture of irritation and hopelessness. "Mr. Bennett urged, I can learn. I can improve. Just give me." "William, the store is doing." Jan shook his head slowly. "I will show you proof of this decision. Well, under Sarah's direction, the staff has responded well to the adjustments. I cannot go back to the way things fell under my purview, both for the business and for every client that strolls in through those doors. Letting you come back would compromise everything we have done for." William's shoulders slumped, his last hope fading. He looked at Andrew, desperation turning to surrender. "I understand," he said softly, almost to himself. "William, the first hope you consider this, as maybe." JK's voice softened somewhat. "The chance to evaluate and develop this is about making sure the appropriate people are in place, rather than about punishment. To maintain the brand's ideals. Wish you the best in your next projects. Unfortunately, you won't be able to get this store reopened." William bowed, his eyes downcast. "Thanks, Mr. Bennett." He muttered silently without more word and left the shop, his movements slow. Jan watched him go, pity and resolution. William's apologies came too late. The damage had been done. Andrew couldn't sacrifice his brand's integrity for the sake of giving William another opportunity. His obligation was to his business, staff, and clients. Sarah stood. She remarked softly, quietly next to Andrew, one of relief. "Thanks for not allowing him return. I believe the..." If he had nodded, Andrew, staff members would have been concerned. "I decided based on what would be best for the store and the customers." "Sarah, you have done a fantastic job here. Keep up the good work. We are building something unique, and I am..." "Thank you, Mr. Bennett." Trusting in your capacity to lead, Sarah grinned, a sense of success gleaming in her eyes. "I will not let you down." Andrew gazed about the store, seeing staff interactions with clients, each engagement successful, and Andrew felt pride and satisfaction. He knew when he welcomed the change, real, and with physical effects. Though there would be difficulties ahead, with strong leadership and a dedication to the ideals of the business, those obstacles might be satisfied. As he left the shop, Andrew felt a renewed sense of purpose. This was what he had worked for, to build a brand. Stood not only for luxury, but also for respect, honesty, and inclusivity. With the appropriate people in place, he knew vision will keep flourishing. Disclaimer: this channel is in opposition to all forms of human rights violations, intolerance, bigotry, and discrimination. The narratives that are presented here are original works that were designed to encourage constructive dialogue, comprehension, and introspection. Respect for diversity and the preservation of human dignity are the guiding principles for the creation of all content.